Good evening. Tonight's special meeting of the Board of Education is called to order at 4:30 p.m. in open session. Roll call, please.
Ms. Armstrong? Ms. Cintron?
Here.
Mr. Critchfield?
Here.
Mrs. Garza?
Here.
Ms. Stewart?
Here. Tonight, we do have requests addressing agenda items. While meetings of the governing board are not public meetings, they are open to the public. Individual speakers will be allowed 3 minutes to address the board on each agenda item, and the board will limit the total time for public input on each item to 21 minutes per board bylaw 9322.2. Anthony Ramirez, will you come on up? Welcome.
I'm the only person here. Hi. On behalf of CSEA, I know agenda item 3.1 is coming up this evening, and the unit wanted to reiterate our position within the district. We would like to make sure that CSEA and the classified staff have adequate volume and opportunity to give input into the superintendent search. We want to partner with the district and all the other stakeholder groups and make sure that our voices are represented as well. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, the board will adjourn to closed session. Open session will resume at approximately 5 p.m. All right, let's go. Good evening. We now reconvene into open session at 5:01 p.m. to resume our regular order of business. Board Clerk Critchfield will provide an update on closed session topics.
Thank you, Madam President. The topics discussed in closed session were anticipated litigation. The board took no action in closed session.
All right, thank you. It's time for discussion items. Mrs. Acevedo.
At this time, hold on 1 minute, please. Let me catch up. Thank you. At this time, I'm going to introduce Dr. David Verdugo and Sandy Thorntonson to go over the superintendent search process and answer any questions that the board may have. Thank you for joining us this evening.
I wanted to begin, board members, by introducing Sandy Thorntonson next to me here. The superintendent previously retired from Whittier Union High School District. If I'm not mistaken, Sandy, I think 14 years? 14 years as the superintendent there. And of course, you did not have the opportunity to meet her previously, so really excited about the fact that she'll be here assisting in this process this evening. I would bring to your attention, board members, the packets that are available to you. Also, if I'm not mistaken, it's on the screen as well. And wanted to begin by thanking Carrie and Elaine for such outstanding work in terms of the correspondence that we've had with them and our executive assistant as well, Linda Harder. We're going to begin with the agenda that you see again posted up on the screen as well as by you there. And we're going to start in numerical order. We'll get down finally to number 11 is when Sandy will take over, and we'll explain that process once we get there. To begin with, this agenda is based around discussion and confirmation of various dates and times as it relates to this search process. And so we're going to jump right to number 2. Typically, we try to designate, with the board's approval, 2 people who would be the liaison and spokesperson for the board during this process. Typically, if I may, that would be the president and vice president, in this case, Ms. Stewart and Mrs. Garza. And so we wanted to make sure that that's fine, although all of the correspondence in any kind of a major way will go to the entire board. So this would be maybe a simplified question. Where are we meeting this evening? Or perhaps what time might the meeting start? Typically, we can rely on Carrie and Elaine on that for that information. But the board would please go ahead and select a liaison, should that be approved. Board president and vice president?
Are you guys okay with that? Okay, good answer,
Consensus?
colleagues.
Okay.
It will be us, thank you.
Thank you. Number 3, we want to confirm that our assistant has received the guidelines, your assistant has received the guidelines and templates from our administrative staff, and that would be from Linda Harder and Elaine, and I think Carrie have in fact, again, been outstanding in that respect and they have received all of that information, sample formats and templates and so on. We will be receiving, number 4, your email addresses. We have those through a worksheet that we have, but I'll confirm that tomorrow with Carrie and Elaine, that we have your information available as well. We want to begin with number 5, to discuss the use of input from the board and stakeholder groups, the online survey as well, and the development of the position profile. And now what I would do is I would ask you to go to the stakeholder input sheet of information that you have there in the packet, which is exactly what Carrie just shined up there. And we're going to jump a little bit, but it's really very important that we obtain from you those partners and community members and stakeholders that you would like us to make sure that we receive from them the questions that we're going to be asking. Those questions, by the way, are: what do you desire most in the next superintendent? What are some of the characteristics, the experiences, the skill sets that you desire most in your next leader? We also ask them what might be the strengths in the district, a dual language program, an AVID program, a CTE program, your staff, your teachers, your engaged parents. And then finally, we ask, and sometimes even more important, what might be some of the challenges that the school district is facing now or on the horizon. It could be something like declining enrollment. It could be something like communication, perhaps. These are just, I'm pulling these out. But what you see in front of you there is a template, typically, of the list of folks that we contact through and with the assistance of your executive assistants. And we begin to set that up with our own executive assistant. But if you'll take a few seconds to look through that, we have 16 general descriptions, but we would rely on the board to provide us any other community forum groups or areas of concern that you'd like us to reach out to. So if you'll look at that for a moment. So what might come to mind in terms of other stakeholder groups that you'd like us to engage in?
I think the only one that I see, that I don't see, is Citizen Task Force.
Okay.
I think that might be a good one. Colleagues?
Yes.
Do you see any others that you guys would like to add?
I do have a clarification needed for number 7, under certificated staff. Could you tell me, under certificated staff, will you also be pulling special education teachers and DI teachers, dual immersion teachers, in
That is
separate
correct,
groups?
Yes,
Or
Mrs. Garza.
okay.
Yeah, that's, and you're correct. Certificated staff, it's kind of an umbrella statement, but we will make sure that we capture all of those teachers who might have to have the opportunity to speak to us either via Zoom or in person. But yes, it'll include all of that group.
Would you like us to meet with them as an individual group? Special ed teachers is one group. The dual immersion teachers is a separate group.
What do you guys think? Or should we just kind of put them together with general education? Thoughts, colleagues?
I guess my question would be, automatically in my mind, I feel like they may have different needs or specify different wants, but I don't know if that would hinder their voice in a general teacher, or if not, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Are you saying, okay, so I don't know, I would leave it to you, my colleagues, to identify if you want it as a separate group or not, but I don't lean one way or another, but I do want to be able to have everybody have a voice too. So I kind of lean.
I think I would be okay with them being generally together as well. Clerk Critchfield?
I mean, that is a lot of groups. I'd say as long as we know that they're a part of it and the conversation, and because we do have a lot of, we need a lot of attention on our SPED, so I definitely want them to be able to weigh in. So
Can you explain with the certificated staff what that would look like for us?
In In general, it's going to be an open invitation to all of your certificated staff members. There have been times when we've done it at schools. There have been times when we've done that in more of a Zoom format. That's convenient for them. So if, for example, they end their school day at 2:45, we would arrange for that Zoom opportunity and/or that personal meeting face-to-face, let's say at 4 o'clock, or perhaps at 3:30. But we would make it convenient for them. The other aspect that I would also mention, though, is we get a lot of information from your teacher's executive council or board as well. So that's another way in which we can capture some more in-depth information pertaining to teachers. Very often, the executive group of your union and so on will capture from your teachers some of the essential elements that they'd like to see in a superintendent. And we, of course, talk to them, of course, separately as well.
Madam President, if I could, depending on how those meetings are run or how the agenda is looking, I would, in some way, shape, or form, carve out time for just our SPED teachers and classified. In addition to that, and I don't know how this would work, but one of the things that I want to make sure is our athletics are heard as well. So I don't know if there's which committee or which group of people that may already be designated to be that specific group. I want to just say coaches, but representatives from our athletic side of the house.
We can certainly do that because each of the sessions typically are 30 minutes. So we're not gonna, we want to have a smaller group per 30-minute session anyway. So that way people's voices can be heard. You know, if you have an enormous number, then it's really frustrating for them. So breaking them down into smaller groups, SPED, dual immersion, athletics, you know, that would make sense.
And we do, of course, include, you'll notice on number 12, booster groups that might be out there.
I also agree.
You mentioned, but the face-to-face as well as the Zoom meetings that we will set up accordingly on this group of stakeholders that you see here on this sheet. The survey itself will be monitored so that we can begin to see how many responses you have within a week. We very often will turn to your site principals so that perhaps they can send out a message, perhaps via your Parent Square or whatever communication system you have, to remind parents, to remind students, volunteers, community members, and so on, to take the survey. Once we accumulate all that information via the survey, then we will start to create a position description. And that's part of the agenda information that I'll share shortly.
David, if I may interject.
Sure, certainly.
When we conduct each of the 30-minute input sessions, we also include our email addresses in the chat, so that way if they have follow-up information or if they want to share something that they may not want to say in that public setting, even though it may just be 5 or 8 or 10 people, so that way they can say whatever they want to say directly to us via email.
Thank you. I appreciate that clarification.
Colleagues, anything else?
Let me go on, if I may, then.
Yes.
In terms of number 5, we're still there. You do have in your packet, if I'm not mistaken, a sample view of the template. I'm sorry, the template of the survey. And we would begin to ask that survey, we are going to request from you what language you'd like that survey in. English and Spanish, we know, will be a dominant language.
And then there is one other language, but is it
Arabic.
Arabic?
Mhm.
I think that's it, right, colleagues? For now. Thank you.
Lisa, is there any other?
No, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Well, we're still on number 5, folks, but what you see there on that line with respect to number 5, discussing your input with regards to the stakeholder group, the online survey, and the development of the position profile, or the job description, if you will. Once we have received all of the survey information, as well as all the face-to-face and Zoom information, we will create a position description. Typically, those are the major themes that you begin to see surface from the stakeholder input. What people and the board, of course, are desiring most in the next superintendent. That position description needs to be approved by the board prior to us publicizing it. So that's one thing to keep in mind as we move forward. That position description will also include a description of your school district and a description of the community of Bellflower. Who do you serve, for example? What areas might you serve? Do you serve North Long Beach? Do you serve all of Bellflower? Do you serve a little bit of Lakewood? Those kinds of things is what would be described in that position description.
And that position description is serves as well as a recruiting tool. It's posted in EdJoin. It's posted on our Leadership Associates website. We have about 2,000 subscribers. So candidates know what the board and this community is specifically looking for in a leader. It helps us to make sure that we weed out possible candidates that really don't have the background or experience or the leadership style that's going to be a good fit for all of you.
And again, the majority of the board will review that position description to approve it accordingly so that we can begin to utilize it and send it out. We've already indicated the languages. That would be Spanish, English, as well as Arabic. Number 6 is one of the aspects that Sandy started talking about, and that is the adoption of our timeline. And I know that there has been some suggested changes, so we'll get to that in just a moment. But also letting you know that we will have publication in EdCal, which is generated by ACSA, the Association of California School Administrators. That publication typically comes out twice a month, and in that publication, there's a wide variety of advertisements pertaining to jobs up and down the state. I think you're going to get national interest in this district as well, so we may well see applicants or people requesting the application from out of state as well on a national basis. Should the board desire, we also are prepared to advertise in the CALSA network, which is the California Association of Latino Superintendents, and CASA, the California Association of African American Superintendents and Administrators. But that is going to be up to the board. Otherwise, we utilize EdCal. which we have found typically and traditionally to be very comprehensive. Any thoughts on the part of the board on that?
I personally feel like the more you can advertise, the better, so I would love to see it go in anything you can put it in.
Okay.
Colleagues?
Agreed. Both would be great.
Clerk Critchfield agrees?
Yeah, I agree. What I would imagine is probably a great overlap between those people that, or do you find in those other you'd just get candidates only from those other two pools?
Typically, you're going to find a little bit of overlap, that's correct. But I think the fact that you've extended out is an important aspect of your outreach to the national as well as state-based administrators, particularly superintendents, deputy soups, assistant soups, that type of thing.
Right.
It certainly doesn't hurt.
Right. And is there that's included in the cost of the search?
That's correct.
Great. Yeah, no, I'm for it.
Okay, let's review the timeline for a moment then. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe you have the timeline that was originally generated there as well. So where we are at right now on that timeline is, of course, February 27th, this Board of Education meeting, and we will be required to go into closed session following this meeting with you folks. We are suggesting, and we believe that this will work rather well, from March 17th to the 31st are the online survey dates. That's plenty of time to capture stakeholder input. March 17th and 18th, typically a 2-day period of time in which Sandy and I would either be here in person or a combination of in-person and Zoom. So for example, I myself will make the commitment to be here at the district office to do via Zoom, and then anybody that might want to talk to me personally, one-on-one, or small group, I'll be here and available as well. But we usually dedicate 2 days, perhaps 2.5 days, and then there's some auxiliary calls, like Sandy mentioned, that we will make or outreach to others who we may not have been able to capture.
And I'll be here as well.
Okay. During the month of March, we will begin to identify potential candidates, the development and posting of recruitment materials, and the position description. And again, once we finish that survey as well as that stakeholder input sessions, we rapidly turn it around and provide a position description for the board to approve or contemplate approval. March 10th and the 17th are 2 of the EdCal ads that we are suggesting. We've already checked with EdCal. They are available for us to utilize as a mass advertising. And then, as we mentioned earlier, CALSA and CASA as well. We may also use CAPL, which is the California Association of Pacific Islanders as well. So that would happen March 10th and the 17th, 2 consecutive publications. Deadline for applications, we are suggesting April 2nd, 5 o'clock.
David, if I may interject.
Yes, please.
In addition to EdCal and the other organizations that we mentioned, it'll be posted immediately on our Leadership Associates website, and we do get a lot of traffic there. So and that'll move more quickly. In fact, I think it's posted now.
It's very well could be posted now. I think that was as a result of the contract that you approved a week ago or so. Yeah, once that took place, we moved forward with publicizing it via our own website. Yeah, and we've already received quite a bit of interest, by the way, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. So April 2nd, 5 o'clock, deadline for applications. We originally had May 2nd. Well, that would begin our, actually right after April, we will begin our comprehensive check and reference check on all the applicants that have applied and made the deadline. One of the critical dates, though, if I'm not mistaken, it shows May 12th up there, and I think the board may have wanted or had a desire to speed this up a little bit, and it was suggested to us that perhaps the board would prefer May 7th. as the meeting in which we would be with you, and that's the candidate selection meeting. It's a closed session meeting. It typically takes about 2.5 to 3 hours. And it looks like you're checking your calendars.
Yeah, I'm good with that date. Are you guys?
May 7th?
Yes, I'm good with May 7th.
I'm good with May 7th as well.
I mean, we could decide the time when we need to.
If at all
Is the
possible, the
date good?
time would be helpful as well in
Okay.
terms of what time we would start.
So typically we start at 4:30. I know with your schedule, we could do, if they're saying 3 hours, maybe we could start at 5. That gives everyone time to come in, eat, get going. May 7th at 5 o'clock. Are you good?
Yeah, May 7th, 5 is good.
Okay, so May 7th at 5 p.m., please.
Okay. I want to mention the fact that prior to that candidate selection meeting, this board will receive all of the applications via a read-only format in which you will be able to, typically about 4 or 5 days prior to that meeting, you'll be able to review all of the applications. We, in turn, will be prepared through our vetting and reference checking. We will be prepared to bring you what we are considering to be our Tier 1 applicants or candidates. It does not mean that you can't look at a Tier 2 person and ask a question. What about this person in Tier 2? I read their application and I'm interested in finding out more about them. And we would be prepared to provide you all of the information on each and every applicant that has applied.
So
The
the
board-
applicants that we place in Tier 1 for your consideration are those that most closely match the position description, most closely match what you and your staff and parents and students and community members have said they really, really need. So through all of the input sessions, we'll develop all of the common themes to see what is it that are the greatest needs here. So then the candidates that match those needs will be in Tier 1. Candidates who match those needs and also have outstanding references.
Madam, if I could, how many tiers are there?
We
3.
typically provide 3 tiers.
So what would that third tier look like?
The third tier would really be somebody who's really not a match and fit in terms of their skill set, their experiences. So you may have someone from, and again, this is just an example, from the Inland Empire, who's currently an assistant principal, who believes that their trajectory is next to jump to a superintendent's position. We know for a fact that the experience and the traits and the things that you require most in a superintendent, that's not going to cut it, to be very frank with you. We have conversations with each of these individuals who apply, so we're very gracious with respect to that conversation. My example may have sounded a little assertive, but the point is that we do reach out to all of the applicants and we speak to them about their opportunity. What's your trajectory? Where have you been? What experiences do you have? As Sandy mentioned, it's only the best people that we will bring forward. Someone who has moved from a district every 2 years, for example, is most likely not going to be someone that we're going to suggest that you review or consider. Longevity is going to be an important factor in Bellflower. So we realize that already, as a matter of fact. So the point is that the Tier 3 people are really just not a match and fit. Tier 2 are excellent folks, but they may not be as desirable or have that match and fit closely aligned with the position description.
So people that could apply, the board could potentially not see their application at all?
No,
No,
the
you'll
board
see
will see all
every
applications.
application.
Okay.
Yeah,
But-
you'll see every single application, and you'll see for yourself, oh yeah, these handful of people had no business applying for a superintendency.
And how many, I know you wouldn't know, but how many applications do you think that would you be expecting?
My sense right now, and Sandy certainly chime in, I'm expecting to have at least a high volume. I suspect that you'll have either 30 to 40 people who will be interested in this position. So that weeding out, if you will, is real critical.
Typically, it's at least 20.
Yeah.
Depending upon the district and the size of the district, sometimes there's a little small district up in, or out in a rural area might only get 15. But, 20 is actually a pretty decent number, but we expect a lot more here.
I have a question on that. So obviously we don't know the variables of how many, but typically, just like an average of your experience, how many do you present in tier one?
Tier one
It really
typically,
depends.
it does depend. And that dependency is on the candidate selection evening and the applicants that we may bring forward. You may well have 7 to 8 people who are outstanding in terms of that match and fit. The board, however, through your process, may want to whittle that down to a comfortable 5, perhaps, who stand out even further than the 2 others. But that's why that meeting is so critical and why we spend so much quality time with you on that and with that process. The application process itself is, I would say, somewhat rigorous, and you'll see that in terms of their letter of interest, in terms of their resume and information that they put on there, their 5 references, their 3 letters of recommendation. Also, we specifically asked them, can we go beyond the references and letters of recommendation that you have given us? And there's a checkbox there. If they say no, we believe that's a little bit of a red flag, obviously. But typically, they say yes. And so that provides us the opportunity to reach out even further than what they have provided us, and we typically do. We do not simply rely on the references and the letters of recommendation that they have provided us in the application itself.
You'll have David and I committed to you every day of this entire process, but we'll also have all of our partners. There are 22 of us. And every other Tuesday, we meet together via Zoom and we help each other recruit and vet. So we share with each other what we've learned about this particular district that we're serving, and then the rest of our partners who are up and down the state will help us, because we each have pretty wide networks, and then we have all of our partners that have networks all over the state and beyond. So it's very, very helpful. We get really exponentially strengthened effort to be able to make sure that we get to know these candidates really well and make sure that they're worthy to have an interview before the board.
And board members, we will provide you updates. I will let you know on a timely basis, certainly not the application, but general information. At this point in time, you have received, we have received 5 applications from 5 superintendents, 3 applications from 3 deputies, 2 applications from directors of fiscal services, or whatever the case might be. So we're going to keep you appraised, generally speaking, prior to that meeting, of what to expect in terms of the positions that they currently have and that they have applied.
Vice President Garza?
Thank you, President Stewart. So when you're saying you're going deeper than just what is in front of you, I'm assuming that also means social media?
Absolutely. Good point, Mrs. Garza. Absolutely correct. Yeah. If, for example, there's somebody who works currently in Santa Clara County, and they have put their general references and letters of recommendation, we also want to speak to the county superintendent. We also may want to speak to a superintendent who is next door to these people. If it's an elementary district, what might be their articulation up to the high school district like? What type of relationship have you had? And then, if I may, many of the questions will be based on the position description as well. We haven't quite gotten to the interview date yet, but just to let you know that many of the questions that are generated are based on what we're hearing from you in terms of having that applicant provide deeper, stronger information about where they've been. What's their track record been, for example, with student achievement? What's their track record been with parcel taxes or bond referendums?
Or dual immersion.
Dual immersion,
their
consolidation of
experience with
schools,
SPED.
perhaps, things of that sort. SPED.
Clerk Critchfield?
If I could actually, that was going to be my question. But to take it a step further, with the social media on the application, can we have where they put their social media accounts? Because I know you said you're already getting applications, so I'm curious, is that a question that's asked on there?
No, it's not specifically. We do our vetting in a confidential manner with that social media platform. And so it's going to be really critical that the confidentiality from this board, of course, be upheld. It does not mean, sir, that you can't, once you receive an application from us to review, that you couldn't go on Google and look yourself, but we would expect or have the expectation that you would keep it to yourself. We don't want to harm anybody who may have applied who has who has a position in their current district. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Is that, so even knowing
it's
that
as if
they're,
Sandy was applying for this position and her board found out, or perhaps her community found out that she's applied for this position, that might hurt her in her current position.
right, I
So
understand.
that's why I'm kind of an umbrella effect, or kind of casting a little bit of an umbrella over this whole confidentiality aspect of things.
I think what you were asking was, do we ask for their specific
Like
social media accounts?
Yeah, say there's an application, we have them come forward, and then they get hired, then we find out their Twitter handle or X handle, and then we go, whoa, this is a liability.
We check on all of that.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Any
Thanks
other
for that
questions?
question.
Sorry, any other questions? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, going still back on the time frame then, we've then decided that May 7th would be when we have the candidate selection process starting at 5 o'clock. June 7th was the original date, if I'm not mistaken, yes, for the board interviews. But it's my understanding that the board may want to advance that. And the date that was suggested, from what I understand, was May 17th instead.
Correct.
I'm
May
not mistaken,
17th
it's
is good with me, if you guys
Saturday.
can check that out on your calendars.
Saturday?
It's a Saturday,
Yes.
May 17th. Mm-hmm.
I'm good with it.
While they're looking, generally, how long would you need for that? Like, just thinking about what time we would start.
It's going to be an all-day affair. Generally, we would ask the board to be available with us in a designated venue, beginning at 7:30 a.m. From 7:30 to 8 a.m., we would have an orientation for the board, how deliberations are going to work, how the process is going to work with respect to, let's say theoretically, that you have 5 people that you're going to interview, how we're going to utilize someone, myself or Sandy, to bring in that first candidate. But 30 minutes prior to the next candidate's interview, we place that person in a different room. We never have them overlap, in other words. Typically and generally, you're going to see and perhaps have as many as 12 questions, perhaps an hour for that interview process. Those people who have been selected for an interview, we share with them what the time frame is. We are the timekeepers in that process. We let them know when they might be on question 9 and they have 20 minutes left in the interview, for example. We would arrange with Carrie and Elaine food services or nutrition services for you folks during that day, early morning as well as lunch, and perhaps a snack in the evening as well. It really is somewhat dependent on the number of people that you choose to interview, however.
Okay,
If
but
you're-
we would think of probably about a 7:30 a.m. starting.
That's correct. And I would say go till typically 6 p.m.
Yeah, we're gonna go till we have to. 'Cause
Yes.
we want someone great. Board Member Cintron, Vice President Garza.
I'm good.
I'm sorry, I'm not good.
Okay, so do you have another possible date?
The following weekend is fine with me.
Or if you're saying May 24th?
Yes. Oh, sorry. Unless we do maybe well, no. Yeah.
Well, there's May 31st.
I'm good with May 31st, but I don't know if that's too late for the board.
Clerk Richfield?
I'm agreeable to either date.
And the 31st, by the way, does work for your partners here.
It does.
Okay.
Board Member Cintron? Okay, so we've got to figure something out, you guys.
What about on a Sunday?
Or
Because
is
that'll
May
be-
10th going too fast? That's another Saturday. Are you guys available?
I am.
Or can you guys check that date?
Yes, I'm available.
It's Mother's Day weekend. I would only bring that up.
Okay, well, we have to find out one weekend. So right now we have every single Saturday in May that you guys are saying no to. So we have to come up with something.
What about on Sunday 11th?
Are
That's still the
Sundays, are you
weekend.
guys available on
Are
Sundays?
you available?
Except for Mother's Day.
Okay.
What about May 18th?
But May 10th, it's okay.
She said she could not be there on
Oh,
that
okay.
day.
And May 31st is not available?
No.
No, not the 31st.
Well, another Sunday's okay.
Is the 18th works?
I'm not available that whole
The eight-
weekend.
No, the whole weekend.
You're not available on the 18th? I guess let's just start going down the dates then. So we're not available on the 10th. The 11th is Mother's Day. We said no on the 17th, no on the 18th, no on the 24th. What about the 25th?
Memorial.
You know, another option is, it's not typical, but I have experienced a couple of districts where they've held it during the week. It's really hard for a candidate. You know, it's just easier for them to come on a weekend because they're coming from a different district. But it has happened. If May 25th works for everyone, a weekend would be better.
That's a Sunday.
Right.
Or a Friday
A
could also
Memorial
work.
weekend.
Do we all have plans Memorial Day?
Yeah,
I mean,
right? Are you guys going out of town for Memorial Day?
It is the Memorial Day weekend on that next Monday, Does the board or the trustees want to contemplate a Friday? But that would mean that should you be working, you'd have to take the day off.
I mean, they pay us big bucks to be up here, so I'm sure we could all miss one.
I can take off a Friday, yes.
Oh, I was kidding, guys. I'm fine with whatever you guys want.
I mean, if it's board.
June 7th happens to work for everyone. I guess the question would be, is there enough time between June 7th and June 18th, if that's when you're suggesting to move our regular meeting, is there enough time between those two dates, June 7th and June 18th?
We believe you would have enough time not only to call a regular board meeting on June 18th, but it also, once your finalist is selected, we would work with your public information officer, I think it's Esmeralda, and put out a press release indicating to your public who your finalist is pending board approval on June 18th. That gives you about a week and a half to agendize that. You don't currently have, I believe, a June 18th board meeting scheduled, but you can call a regular board meeting. A regular board meeting, you must have a regular board meeting to approve a contract for a superintendent. It can't be a special meeting.
Correct.
So that would work. The only thing that you would have to contemplate in terms of some speed would be the negotiations between your finalist, your legal counsel, and the board president, who typically that's the trio of people who work on that negotiated contract.
Oh, we have an amazing lawyer. We're good.
Okay.
We're good. Okay.
So the
Are you
new,
guys good on June 7th?
okay.
Okay.
Agreed.
So June staff, because I know that we've been talking about this and this isn't what we want to do. So are you okay on June 7th?
We won't be there with you, but we
Okay.
are okay with you doing that date. I think that
Okay.
works good. I think
Okay.
that will work out
Yeah,
for
there's
you all
no
well.
need for staff to be available on,
Okay, so
Saturday,
June
June
7th at 7:30 a.m.?
yes.
Okay.
Except someone to let us into the, unless it's not going to be here.
Right, and we'll cover that in a moment. What Sandy was referring to is the venue that you'd like to utilize. Certainly, you can use this board area right here, except that we typically wouldn't want the board members to be at the dais. We'd want you at the same level of the candidate that you're being interviewed for, unless there's another multi-purpose room of sorts that you could use.
We
But
actually have staff that will set up tables for us. We've done workshops and things like that, so we can do that, correct? Staff, yes? Okay.
And we would coordinate with Carrie as well as Elaine, and may even ask Carrie or Elaine to assist us in the process with the food, for example. Those other factors that come into play, some of the logistics of things.
Okay, so colleagues, we've got the June 7th date. Are you guys okay with the moving of our June 26th board meeting, our regular board meeting, to June 18th? It's a Wednesday.
I'm good with that.
I'm good with that.
Clerk Critchfield?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. So staff, can we get that on the agenda for our March 13th meeting? Mrs. Acevedo? Can we get that change on our agenda for the next board meeting?
We'll bring it forward on the March 13th meeting, yes.
Okay, thank you so much. So now we have that last date, June 18th?
Correct,
Okay.
correct. I did want to bring up, was there any consideration for location or venue? Would you prefer to have it here at the boardroom, the interviews themselves?
I think I would, well, I'll speak on how I feel. I would like for you guys to be the experts on that. I'll be honest, I know in our last superintendent search, there were people sitting out in the parking lot,
Right.
and people did see them come in. So I would leave that up to you guys.
Okay.
Colleagues, anybody else?
It was exactly for that reason that oftentimes board members will find another location, a community center or hotel or.
We could
I would be okay with that, with
Okay.
what you guys decide, as long as it's not super far.
Right, well, I mean, we could even work
It'll be
with your
in the-
city manager, for example, and contemplate, might they have a room in which one could have access to it?
Well, now they know the date and they know the time, so we might have to think about that.
Okay,
We trust you guys.
okay.
Thank you.
We'll work with staff on that then.
Thank you.
Right. One of the things that sometimes comes up is a validation visit following the selection of your finalist. So let's say on that Saturday, June 7th, yes, after the interviews, the board may want to contemplate a visitation, a validation visit to the person who you've selected to their district. If it's Hawaii, then it's different. But if it's local, two board members may want to contemplate going to that person's district and interviewing or speaking to people like an executive assistant, cabinet members, PTA members, things of that sort. Generally speaking, that's the responsibility of the new person who's been selected. Very often it's been done via Zoom as well. And very often boards do not necessarily feel that they need to do that. So that's an option that we can keep open and we can discuss at a further point in time following That's a parameter worksheet that indicates what their salary range expectation is, how many years they'd like to have available to them in terms of their contract, what perhaps local civic organizations they'd like to have be joined, AXA, Kiwanis, Rotary, whatever the case might be. Let's see, some of their technical needs as well, health and welfare benefits, which are typically what your current cabinet are getting or what your previous superintendent received. But it's an information item that helps us with respect to speaking to them. There may be a candidate who's going to be interviewed who requests $500,000, obviously an example. And we will say to them, no, that's not the range, it's not viable. You need to contemplate and determine whether or not you want to move forward with that.
So we want to make sure before
Yeah.
interviews that the board and these top candidates who are going to be interviewed are in sync, that we're not going to have any glitches when it comes to contract negotiations. So it's all clear and everybody's has a agreement and a clear understanding before the interviews that it's what they're hoping to request is reasonable and within the range of what we will talk with you to make sure that you're comfortable with.
And
So
we
it's
can-
a smooth sailing process then.
And if I may, we can do some comparability and contrast with various districts of your similar size and location.
Thank you. Board Member Cintron.
So, I'm sorry, just to clarify, so this contract parameter worksheet would just be the umbrella that we start at
That's correct.
for all candidates, or is it,
Only the people that you.
I mean, the top ones that we select, correct?
Right. We
And
will-
then
we
does
will-
it change?
It can via negotiations, but typically it does not. What I was going to say, however, is that let's say you select 2 finalists to bring back during the day of the interview. You've interviewed 5 individuals, and through your deliberations, you have selected 2 to be returned for a second set of interviews. It's those 2 individuals that we will have available their parameters worksheet to share with you. We won't bring out a parameters worksheet for somebody who hasn't been selected as a finalist.
Thank you.
And those second round interviews are the afternoon of the day of the interviews.
Number 9, we're going to request a copy of the superintendent's contract. That helps us with respect to reviewing it and looking at any other factors regarding the contract. And at this point, any other points, questions, or clarification that you need on what we've shared so far on the agenda?
Board Member Cintron.
Thank you. I did want to jump back quickly to the survey. One question I wanted to ask, is the survey going to be available with ADA standards? Like,
Disability.
yes.
Disabilities, yeah.
Is this going to be, like, is that how the survey is conducted, or do we have to request it special, or?
Well, we don't typically provide for a specific disabilities area for the survey to be taken.
Like if somebody needs to use Braille or if somebody needs some other kind of modification, is that what you're
Well,
meaning?
yes, because there's some surveys that I've taken myself that you're able to, like, the text can become bigger,
Oh,
based on,
okay.
things like that, or
I would say, if I may,
read to you
yeah,
when you're clicking through it. So that's kind of where I'm coming from in that
I
question.
think we may need to have kind of a pending aspect of that. And should we discover that somebody needs that type of assistance, I think it's at that point in time that we would determine how that might occur.
We'll do whatever it takes to make sure that people are accommodated. You know,
Okay.
whatever your usual system is in serving your staff and your community. We'll
Yeah,
work with
I
your
just
staff.
want to make sure that our community has access to it in a way that it's not challenging
Yeah.
for them.
But
Because I
again-
think we
but
cherish
again,
our
we would-
community input, and I think the survey has to be available in ways of making sure that these things are addressed ahead of time.
But again, we would not know that ahead of time. The
We'd have to-
surveys, we would need, we would need to be indicated as to where or who that might be to provide that assistance.
I understand what you're saying. I think what I'm hearing is that the survey is out there, and if someone needs additional help with the survey, like if they need it in Braille or if they need it read to you or things like that, they can make those accommodations, but the survey would go out just like a normal survey. I'm not sure
So
what
how
you
would they
wanna
reach out?
change. Sorry, I was just saying I'm not sure how you would want to change it.
We inform the public that it's available via your website. So the survey is on your website.
The link will
link.
be on the website.
Right, so
in-
how would they reach out?
We
So
would
they're
pub-
reaching out to our
To
staff.
staff.
We
Right.
would publicize
help
that.
them.
Your public information officer would have some type of a plan to communicate that to your public. Might there
Typically-
be a parent ed, or rather a parent link or parent ed where you communicate with all of your families?
Let me rethink the way I want to structure this question to
Okay.
get the answer that I'm
I think
looking
the
for.
principals will be able to be helpful to us, because if the principals have any particular folks in their school community who they know need accommodations, then, so we're going to need to work with staff to have staff tell us what kind of accommodations might be needed. It's going to be available in English, Spanish, and Arabic. So if there are accommodations that are needed, we'll need to have staff let us know. So I would imagine that any of your folks who need those accommodations, they would need to go to their principal, somebody at the school site, to say, can I have help with this?
Sandy's point about the principals, we work with them. That's another key point of contact or communication with your immediate public at your various representative schools. So a principal would most likely indicate in the format or the way that they normally do that this survey is available from this date to that date, and that they need to go to the website, the Bellflower website, and get on the link. We've gone so far at various times, dependent upon the city, we've spoken to city managers and have had it available on a city website as well. But that's typically after asking the city manager whether or not that would even be available.
Mrs. Acevedo, do you want to weigh in, please?
Yeah, what I could offer to assist in this situation, just to ensure that if we have anyone that has an access issue with the survey, what we can do on our district website link is put a comment down there to contact the superintendent's office for assistance. So we can add a contact on there. That way they can reach out directly to us, and then we can assist whatever that accommodation may be.
Thank you for understanding what I was trying to ask. Thank you, President. I think my answer was given, so I would really appreciate an extra little blurb at the end.
Okay, so we'll add that. Staff, thank you. Vice President Garza?
Are we also including this survey through Parent Square?
It will go out, it'll be communicated through Parent Square and then posted on the website as they had discussed, yes.
Thank you.
So I would assume, seeing that we've done a lot of surveys and our districting mapping and things like that, where we get that pop-up when you go to the website, that's what I'm going to assume is going to happen, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Clerk Critchfield, anything?
In fact, there should be a description of the process that's being utilized and various dates or milestones of the search process that's available through your PIO on the website as well.
Okay. Did you guys have any other questions? Board Member Cintron, you're good? Okay, go ahead. Thank you. Go ahead.
Great, okay. Well, we're at a point now where we would like to acquire from you folks what you folks desire most in the next superintendent. Sandy is prepared to memorialize that and take that information down on her laptop. And generally, we start with a question for the board members. We desire a superintendent who, and whatever comes to mind. And again, I'll use a little bit of a catalyst as an example, has integrity, has a track record of working with SPED, has experience working on bond referendums, has experience with fiscal accountability and stability. So those things that you know about your district that you desire most in the next superintendent is what we're asking.
It could be professional or personal characteristics, leadership style. All those sorts of things would be appropriate for responses in this to this question.
Is visible, is committed to longevity, has experience dealing with declining enrollment, has had experience with engaging our parents and communicating effectively, listening, writing, and speaking. So those are just ideas and thoughts.
Board member colleagues?
So we will start with anybody.
Clerk Critchfield?
I would love to see a superintendent with an athletic background, somebody who understands. I mean, maybe it's not the top of the list, but somebody who understands the importance of athletics, and an athletic background would be a plus in my opinion. Somebody who's competitive, somebody who believes in team building and that athletic approach to team building and morale.
Yeah.
That'd be great. And also somebody who's very tech savvy, somebody who leans into AI and different ways to bring our district forward in that regard. And those are the two off the top of my head.
And we will circle back should other thoughts. And very often we've heard that regarding athletics. It's been posted, typically has experience with CIF, section operations and so on. So next.
Board member Cintron?
If I can just clarify, when you say has an athletic background, that doesn't mean that they have been an athlete themselves, but they understand the importance of athletics? Would that be accurate?
No, that both.
Both,
Yeah.
okay. Okay.
I think I understand what he's saying because we talk a lot, we're both athletes, so maybe we're a little bit biased. But we talk about just that leadership quality of being able to lead, being able to work with lots of different types of people, being able to motivate people. And we find that in athletics, and I think that's why we're so passionate about that. So I think that's like the type of leader that we're looking for, someone that can take control of a room and lead people and take people from one place to another. Go ahead, Board Member Cintron.
Leaning into the integrity part that understands collaboration and community, that understands building a vision and knowing how to, or at least having the experience of, again, leading, but leading with integrity.
Yes, ma'am.
I think is one of the biggest things when I think of our current interim superintendent. I think of that first. So I think it's someone that is and knows how to understanding the capacity building of their cabinet and their staff, that's very important to them, so that they can also help lead and give a ladder to those in the district as well.
Absolutely.
I think those are the things that pop in my head right away.
And again, we'll circle back. There are probably some other thoughts that come to mind.
Vice President Garza?
I was just thinking about a leader who has had experience raising test scores, and also being empathetic. That's really important. And that they're not afraid to roll up their sleeves and jump into a classroom if at all needed, because if they can do that, then we can certainly make sure the teachers will follow that leader, because they're not afraid to do it themselves.
Absolutely.
They should lead by example.
I think for me, ditto on everything that my colleagues said. I'm very big on the test scores as well and curriculum. I think that's really important. So someone who has a background as a teacher would be very important to me. I am really big on our family atmosphere, and I think that's one thing that I see with a lot of our staff, and especially with Mrs. Acevedo, is we get someone that has experience and that knows our district and knows our family atmosphere. I have the same, I know Dr. Verdugo, you would understand, with Paramount. I went to an event Saturday, and it's like everybody, and it's like that feeling of just being a family and being able to all work together and collaborate, someone that wants to work with our unions, that we don't have to ask to work with them, someone that wants to work with our PTA and hear what our parents have to say. So for me, that family community value is very important to me. That's the reason I'm here, like I said, because I'm from here, and I want someone that they don't have to necessarily be here, but they need to value the people that we have and the history that we have and try to create a cohesive family in our district. I think our teachers and our CSEA workers and our parents, they want to be valued. So that would be really important to me as well. And someone that really is going to understand that we have to work together as a board and a superintendent as well. We need someone that understands that we have very different personalities. I think we all have great intentions. We all mean well. We want to do good things for children. And we want someone that understands that we have to work in partnership together. So those would be very important for me as well.
And if I may clarify, Madam President was referring to a Celebration of Life event that took place at Paramount Gymnasium. The entire gymnasium was full of folks celebrating the life of one of my former cabinet members. So I wanted to clarify that's where we had seen each other with
Yeah.
respect to that. So quite an event. Thank you.
Yeah. Anything else, colleagues?
Yeah, if I could. I just want to clarify, because of the really good answers they gave, I may have missed the mark. A lot of that stuff I kind of assumed would be there, but athletics obviously on top of all of the great answers. I also want to add, really missed the mark on that one. Stand by it, but I missed it. Also, looking for a leader who's experience being involved in community groups, civic groups, can work well with our city partners. Somebody who has that experience, whether it's in their local Rotary, Seroptimus, the things that are involved in the city that may not be specific to their district, but they did the work to do the networking with our partners. And also somebody with a track record of working collaboratively and positively with a board. I think how they worked with, if their current superintendent, the references from boards they've worked with is going to be really important and for us. So that's something in addition to all that I'd be looking for.
And that's absolutely one of the expectations we have of any candidate, is that we speak to their current board. Other
Board Member
things?
Cintron?
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to also add is that has experience, not just with raising test scores, but with raising the rate of graduation for our students. And that is open to innovation and understands that our cabinet members are very innovative, but knows how to support them in that.
Excellent.
Vice President Garza?
Yes, just something else that came to mind as Board Member Critchfield was speaking was also understanding when they need to be a politician and cater to those types of groups when they come in and visit our schools as well, and how to put on events so that way, because they are that liaison as well. They become the face of our district.
Absolutely.
So they would really need to understand how to work within both worlds. Just being a superintendent, but at other times, you are also the face of our district. And that is the way you should present yourself.
Very good point. Politically savvy, politically astute.
Absolutely.
Yes, ma'am.
I think another thing for me too is I would love a very diverse background, someone who understands elementary and also understands our secondary. We have a unique 7th through 12th system with our middle school and our high school. So being able to understand those different dynamics of how our district is ran, we don't have 6, 7, 8 middle schools. We have a different dynamic. So someone that ideally would have elementary and secondary background would be very important to me as well.
If I may interject, we often hear that a PhD or an EDD, a doctorate, is required, but we typically don't stress that. We typically say a doctorate might be preferred. So I just wanted to make sure that that could be placed on the position description as we begin to generate that down the road a little bit. Because
Yes.
there are boards who will say, no, we definitely we require somebody to have a doctorate, and that should not be the case. Okay.
And the same thing
Yeah.
goes for bilingual. We don't ever require that, but it's sometimes some boards will say it would be preferable, but certainly not. And not just bilingual, but bilingual or conversant in working with a variety of diverse community members along those lines.
Yeah, and obviously with our demographics, we're like 68, 70% Hispanic, so that would be amazing. I don't know for me that it's an exact requirement. Same with the doctorate. I want a good leader. I don't care who you are. I want a good leader that's going to come work hard for us.
Absolutely.
But I understand those would be preferred, and those would be great. Clerk Richfield?
Yeah, I would, to echo that, I think, I don't know if there's something in between preferred and required, but strongly preferred. I think it's something that would be a benefit to them and the community if they were bilingual. But also, I think looking for because it's my goal that supporting a bond in the next year and a half. So a superintendent that has experience going through the bond process and how they implemented that bond, I think would be great.
Excellent.
Okay. Anything else, colleagues? No? Okay.
And if I may, I will speak to Mrs. Armstrong personally. I'll give her a call and contact and reach out to her with respect to this question. The next question is really, and maybe this is just a little bit more rapid in terms of kind of a popcorn opportunity to say something, and that would be the district's strengths. What are you most proud of? What is working well? What do you think are your district strengths, your teachers, your cabinet, your staff, a dual language program, a CTE program, pathways, whatever might come to mind?
Board Vice President Garza?
Thank you, President Stewart. I think everything you just named, they really are. We have beautiful schools. All our schools have grass. You can't make that claim every district, but they all do. Our support staff for CSEA, they are definitely a backbone in our district as well. Our teachers are very dedicated to their students, and they want to see them do well. Our cabinet, they're all amazing. They're here. They're going to come and show up with us on a weekend. So I think that those are all very, big strengths, but just like you mentioned.
Okay.
But are we missing anything else?
I have a list.
Oh.
I'll let Clerk Christopher go first.
Thank you, Madam President. Well, to keep a tradition, the thing I'm proud of about our district is our unified program, which is our SPED programming. So definitely that. And then also, again, athletics district-wide. And then also our CalAPS program, which would be our CTE pathways.
Yeah, just to piggyback on that as well. Well, one, I think our school board's amazing as well. But athletics, we have really good teams that have gone to the CIF championships. We won state championships, so I think that's really strong. Our CalAPS, we offer so many more pathways than our neighboring districts. I feel like that's the biggest way that we could actually pull kids and people to our district. We've talked a lot with negotiations right now. Our class sizes are very good compared to others, so I think that would be a strength. And definitely our dual program. I know some of our neighboring districts are just starting theirs, and we've had ours for a long time, so I think that's a really good focus as well. And the people here. I think we have a great little combination of having a little bit from Cerritos, Lakewood, and Bellflower, and I just love the unique trajectory of all of our partners. I think that's kind of cool, too. Anything else?
When you mentioned partners, did you mean community partners or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really nice to have we have about 1,000 residents in Cerritos. We have 40% of Lakewood, I think, is us, and then Bellflower. So we have a little combination of different demographics. When we did our districting, we just got to kind of see how different some of them are, and I think that's unique and kind of cool as well.
And some of those boundaries were established in the 50s. Yeah, so I understand that as a result of being in Paramount,
Yeah.
serving Southgate, North Long
Yeah.
Beach, parts of Bellflower, Lakewood, gosh, a couple of others. But
Right.
nevertheless, thank you.
Mhm.
Anything else regarding strengths? We're going to switch gears and go to challenges now. Those things that might be challenging now or perhaps on the horizon. And again, I'll just use that example. It could be declining enrollment. It could be fiscal aspects of things. It could be federal government issues that are coming up and causing some anxiety. All those things accordingly could be recruiting and retaining. So challenges.
I think for me, challenges right now is we just went to a block schedule. We're working on that, and that's a big challenge right now in our district. That's definitely, I think, one of the biggest challenges at the moment. In the past, I've heard of just turnover with our admin, getting really good principals and APs and keeping them in place. I think that would be really important. I think that's a challenge that we've had in the past. I think security, I'll just keep going. I think security is a problem when I'm listening to parents talking about some of our campuses and things that we can do better as far as with our security on campuses. That's something that I hear a lot about.
Does that play into safety as well? Or
Safety, absolutely. Safety, I think, is a really big thing that I think we're doing better, but I think we need to continue to improve and work with our partners on that.
Good.
Go ahead.
All of that, and I'd say outdated like a process, like getting up on technology, like being with internal processes and that. I would say aging facilities. That's definitely a challenge for us. In safety, I'd say. Off the top of my head.
And definitely our test scores. We want to continue to improve, and we need to find innovative and different ways to improve. I understand it's a problem across the state and across the nation, but we have to do something to find out how to at least continue to improve a little bit, something that will help us stand out so that we can attract other students and staff. Vice President Garza?
Thank you. I would say ADA, which you brought up. Also, within ADA, how do we pivot? How do we make ourselves look more enticing? So they would really need to be able to kind of have that out of the box thinking and be able to be flexible. Maybe take some calculated risks, but also make sure that it's always founded on some type of research as well.
And Madam Vice President, if I may, you've also indicated some things about traits and experiences that superintendent should have as well.
Yes.
So we'll park that.
Thank you.
In that first.
That wasn't my intention, but yes, you're right.
Okay.
And then also making sure that they understand what the programs are as well. That they can go ahead and look at them, at what we have currently, and kind of sift through what we really need, so that way we're not doing too many at the same time. So just some knowledge about that, perhaps.
There's a lot on everybody's plate.
Clerk Crutchfield?
Thank you, Madam President. You mentioned declining enrollment, which I'm sure it's going to be a lot of different folks. But along with that, the communication and marketing piece and how to actually turn that tide and really promote the district can be a challenge that we'd want addressed.
Got it.
Yeah, I agree with that too. A stronger enrollment campaign would be great. Anything else? All right, thank you.
Okay. That really concludes our agenda. However, we are asking the board to join us in closed session, or are we allowed to join you folks for a closed session at this moment?
Okay, at this time, the board will adjourn to closed session at 6:19 p.m. There will be no action taken in open session.